Even better.
So much stuff that's not even, I'm like, I don't even know who these people are, why do I wanna follow them, why do I wanna see these ads? It takes forever
Are you
to
ready?
like find the stuff from my people. I'm like, I just wanna see what's going on. Yeah, like it was fun, I saw, Jared, he took his daughters to the father-daughter dance. Wasn't that so cute? That's the kind of stuff I wanna see, I don't care about everybody else's stuff. It's like, I don't care about you guys.
That's amazing. Okay,
That was really special.
Yeah.
I'm gonna turn the lights off so you get a little,
Oh, we
little
get
more.
the full vibe? We need the full vibe.
Yeah.
The ambience.
Yes.
You got to get some sensory deprivation
Oh,
here.
oh, look at that. Whoa.
Focus up.
Wait,
friend. Okay,
What's
so
that?
I'm gonna tell you guys a little story.
Okay.
You're fine, carry on. It was a time of wizards and sorcerers, idol worship and human sacrifice.
Do we actually do that?
We can't hear.
Thank you.
Okay. You ready?
I'm ready.
Okay.
I don't know why it's not coming. Oh, that's why. Somebody pulled the plug out. Wasn't me.
Besides, I'm not to the fire yet.
All right.
All right. It was a time of wizards and sorcerers, idol worship, and human sacrifice. Nearly 400 years after Christ walked the earth, the Roman Empire still reigns, but in the corners of the world, the law of the land is established by barbarian kings. To the fire.
Is that fire?
Terrified the raiders would spot him, the youth hid at wood's edge as he watched eager flames consume his family's house. Suddenly, powerful hands jerked his arms behind him. Coarse ropes burned his wrists. He and dozens of others were herded to boats grounded in the cove. He was now a slave.
It's like walking through your grass.
The 16-year-old watched his whole way of life slip away as the rhythmic orbits pushed the boat steadily west. A wealthy nobleman's son, he'd had it easy enough. He hadn't cared much for school, preferring to go off with his friends. Christianity didn't mean much to him either. His grandfather was a priest, and his father was a deacon in the village church. But he knew that his father held that office more for tax advantage than out of love for God. The sound of pebbles crunching beneath the hull signaled their arrival. Yanked from the boat, he was thrust into a guarded pen to await sail. Young Maewyn Suket was finally bought by Miliuk, one of the pagan chieftain kings. For the trip to the king's lands, the lad was assigned a short-tempered soldier who would shout strange words, angry that the boy didn't understand. Not until they reached a crude stone barn and thatched hut did the men untie him.
Shot him?
Yep. The gruff king's herdsman who took charge of him didn't hesitate to curb the boy's lazy ways with a stout club. Maewyn's job was to care for a large flock of sheep belonging to the king. Night and day he spent out on the mountain pastures. At least the sheep became his friends. Nice. Talking to them somehow soothed his heartache. He also began to talk to the God his Christian grandfather had told him about. The despair of slavery and solitude of the mountain compelled him to reach out. Our Father, which art in heaven, he began hesitantly, hallowed be thy name. The words recited in childhood now became a cherished prayer. He described it this way. Many times a day I prayed. The love of God and his fear came to me more and more, and my faith was strengthened. In a single day, I would say as many as 100 prayers, and almost as many in the night. I used to get up for prayer before the daylight, whatever the weather, snow, frost, rain, without suffering any ill effects. The spirit within me was fervent. 6 long years of servitude on that rain-swept mountain forged the boy into God's man. Then one night, as he prayed, he heard a voice. "It is well that you fast. Soon you will go to your own country." God was speaking. The voice came again. "See, your ship is ready." That night he fled. He had never been there, nor did he know a living soul. He didn't know how far he had to go, or if there would really be any ship, but he was sure God was leading him. He plunged through the bogs and scaled the mountains, which separated him from the sea, avoiding roads lest he be discovered. After a 200-mile trek, he reached the sea. There he saw a ship making ready to sail, and finding the captain, he requested passage. His family would repay the fare, he promised, but the surly captain refused. As he slowly retraced his steps along the beach, he prayed again, and before he ended his prayer, he heard the whish of feet sprinting in the sand behind him. "Come, hurry," a sailor called. "We shall take you on in good faith. Make friends with us." God had heard his prayer. The voyage took 3 days, but when they landed, they saw no people, only a desolate wilderness. For almost a month, they sought food. The pagan captain, who had mocked his faith, finally sought him out. "You say your God is great and all-powerful. Why then do you not pray for us?" Maewyn was bold. "Be truly converted with all your heart to the Lord my God, because nothing is impossible for him. That this day he may send you food on your way until you be satisfied, for he has abundance everywhere."
That was you, Chris. Going back for seconds.
With the help of God, so it came to pass. Suddenly a herd of pigs appeared on the road before our eyes, and they killed many of them. And there they stopped for 2 nights and fully recovered their strength. And from that day they had plenty of food. In this new land, Maewyn was once again taken into captivity. On the first night he heard a divine message saying, 2 months will you be with them. So on the 16th night the Lord delivered him from their hands. At this time, Maewyn began to realize that his years in captivity had robbed him of an education that he desperately needed. He sought out a famous bishop who would give him the training he was sorely lacking, and here he developed a lifelong love for the scriptures. After many years, Maewyn was able to return to his country and his people. They welcomed him and begged him to stay after suffering so many hardships, but it was not to be. Late one night, he had a vision that changed his life. "I saw a man coming from the country where I was a slave with countless letters. He gave me one of them and I read the opening words. At the same moment I heard a voice crying out as with one mouth, 'We beg you, young man, come and walk among us once more.' I was broken-hearted and could read no further. Another night they called me most unmistakably with words which I heard but could not understand, except that at the end of the prayer he spoke thus, 'He that has laid down his life for you, it is he that speaks to you.' So I awoke full of joy." Eventually, he told his dismayed family of his plans and began preparations for the priesthood with the intention of returning to his former captors. A number of his seniors came forward and brought up sins against him. The cause they found against him was the subject of a childhood confession. He had been 15 then and didn't believe in the living God. At a time when he was troubled, he had confided in his best friend. Now Maewyn was sorry for his dearest friend, who in person had said, "Look, you should be raised to the rank of bishop." But afterward, he let him down publicly. That day he was, I know, right? Who needs friends? That day he was severely chastised and really humiliated. He faced hunger and poverty daily because of the rejection of these men. Maewyn did not give up, but found his strength in God. He was determined to go even without the support of the church, and gave thanks that the work Christ had given him would not be frustrated. It's hard to grasp just what an accomplishment this was. When he decided to willingly go back to the barbarians with the gospel, he had to figure out how to bring the values of the gospel he loved to such people. These were people who still practiced human sacrifice, who warred with each other constantly, and who were renowned as the great slave traders of the day. This would not be a simple thing. Though Paul is referred to as the first missionary, he never got out of the Greco-Roman world, nor did any of the apostles. 5 centuries after Jesus, slavery was not yet condemned as immoral. To return to this land was to risk captivity at any time. Maewyn decided to go first to the pagan king who had enslaved him as a youth. He would buy his freedom and tell him of Jesus. But when old Milius heard that the man was coming to convert him, he gathered all his goods around him and set fire to his house as a great funeral pyre. He would die with honor in the ancient way rather than subject himself to his slave's religion. Arriving as smoke still rose from the smoldering ruins, he was shattered. The first convert he sought had committed suicide. Still, Maewyn believed he must not hide God's gift which he bestowed upon him in the land of captivity, because there he earnestly sought him and there found him, and was saved from all evil because of God's Spirit living in him. He would not remain silent for the love of Christ. Daily he expected murder, fraud, or captivity, but he feared none of these things because of the promises of heaven. He tramped the roads and forded the rivers of this land by true faith and sincerity of heart. He never asked for payment or accepted gifts. He freely trained ministers and even spent money for others so that he would be received. He gave presents to kings and paid fees to their son. Even after all this, he was imprisoned for a 3rd time. Everything these captors found on him and his companions they took away, and they put him in chains. Maewyn was shackled for 14 days before the Lord delivered him from their power. All the belongings of he and his companions were returned to them. At one time, Maewyn asked Dair, king of Armagh, for a hilltop site on which to build a church. The man offered a spot on lower ground instead. Undaunted, Maewyn went ahead and began building. One day, Dare sent him a valuable 3-gallon bronze pot imported from the continent. "Thanks be to God," the missionary said. Dare raged when he heard of his response. "Stupid man! Doesn't he have any more grateful words for my gift than thanks be to God?" He sent his servants to demand the pot's return. "Thanks be to God, take it away," was all the missionary would say. Dare was... Yeah, exactly. Dare was so astonished by the humble reply that he came to the construction site himself. "This place isn't good enough for your church, holy man. You wanted the Ridge of the Willows. I give it to you and to your God." There was something about this man's exuberant faith and steadfast character that attracted these warlike kings. By the time of his death, he had baptized tens of thousands and established hundreds of churches throughout the land. Within a century, this one pagan land became predominantly Christian, possessing such a vigorous faith that they in turn sent out missionaries to Scotland, England, France, Germany, and Belgium. They stopped slave trading, and they never took it up again. Human sacrifice had become unthinkable. Not only had he accomplished what he'd set out to do, convert the nation to Christ, but in the process he'd retrieved from obscurity the primary objective set by Christ for his apostles, the spread of the gospel to the ends of the earth. As an old man, he looked back in awe. Those who never had a knowledge of God, but worshipped idols and things impure, have now become a people of the Lord, sons of God. The conversion of this country made possible the preservation of Western thought through the early Dark Ages by monasteries founded by Maewyn's successors. When the lights went out all over Europe, a candle still burned here. That candle was lit by Patricius, the name given Maewyn as a priest. No, he never chased the snakes out of Ireland. This is a metaphor for his driving the pagans from Ireland, as snakes have been associated with Satan, sin, and evil since the Garden of Eden. He had single-handedly driven the idol-worshipping Druid witchcraft cult out of Ireland. Nor do we really know whether Patricius used the shamrock to teach converts about the Trinity. But what we do know about St. Patrick is far more interesting than many of the legends that grew up around him. The fact that we know anything at all is a great miracle, for he is literally the only individual we know from the 5th century Ireland or England. Not only do no other written records from Britain or Ireland exist from that century, but there are simply no written records at all from Ireland prior to Patrick's. The old saint died in his beloved Ireland. The land which once enslaved him had set him free. So, the luck of the Irish was not really luck at all, but the provision of a merciful God who knew each of us before we were born. I can't even read it. And made a way for his gospel to be spread to the ends of the earth.
Praise the Lord.
Bits and pieces, but man.